Hello and welcome to Wednesday's Granada Reports.
Good evening, here's what's lined up tonight.
On hold, 17 of our hospitals are pausing some routine operations as staff absences soar because of COVID. One health union warns of the impact.
Some of them are still suffering with long COVID. Some people have left the service because they can't cope with the pressures. So it is a perfect storm.
We will never forget them, the new memorial for those killed in the arena bombing.
It's not designed to upset, it's designed to make you remember, and I think it's just brilliant. I think it's brilliant.
Caught on camera the moment Bebe the Dachshund was rescued from a flooded quarry.
How Mia the cat became a social media sensation, getting on for more than 200 million people have watched her videos.
And we have a warning in place for snow. All the details coming up later on in the programme.
Well, first tonight, hundreds of operations and appointments are expected to be cancelled because of mounting pressures on our hospitals in the northwest.
17 in Greater Manchester are pausing non-urgent surgery amid soaring COVID cases and staff absences.
This comes at a time when the NHS is dealing with record waiting times, with some patients facing waiting years for routine treatments.
Our correspondent Anne O'Connor has the latest on the impact of the Omicron wave on patients and staff. Anne?
Yes, Elaine, if you're due to have something like a hip replacement or a hernia op in Greater Manchester in the next few weeks, expect to get a letter fairly soon saying it'll have to be put back. 17 hospitals, including the Royal Bolton, where we filmed earlier, have taken this joint decision as Omicron infection rates have more than quadrupled in a month. They say they hope to resume non-urgent procedures in weeks rather than months, but really don't know how this wave will play out. Cancer care, urgent cardiac and vascular surgery will continue. I've been speaking to a consultant in A&E at Bolton. He gave us figures they couldn't ignore.
The number of COVID cases in hospitals in Greater Manchester was slightly over 1,100, and that was a rise of round about 84 cases on the previous day alone. That gives you an indication of just how quickly that was rising. In terms of staff absences, usually around winter time, most hospitals will have a staff absence of around about 4 or 5%. But now we're seeing absences of a rate of around about 10 to 15% of all staff.
Now, that steep rise in the number of people in hospital has not been seen in intensive care, though that could change. There's been a tenfold increase in the infection rate in people aged over 60 in Greater Manchester in a matter of weeks. The Royal College of Nursing says the NHS had 5,000 vacancies for nurses before the pandemic, and its members are now exhausted, covering even more staff shortages.
The virus has left many of our nurses and clinical staff affected by COVID. Some of them are still suffering with long COVID. Some people have left the service because they can't cope with the pressures. So it is a perfect storm.
Yeah, it's an alarming picture. And we've been hearing details today about the effect of this surge in Omicron cases on social care.
Yes, Gamal, the NHS says it's working with what's called partners, so care homes, GP surgeries and social services, to try to make sure that people who can be discharged from hospital are. With an occupancy rate of about 90%, that is hugely important to keep beds free. But Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Metro Mayor, held a COVID briefing earlier, revealing worrying figures for the number of care homes that have outbreaks and the number of people in hospital who can't therefore be transferred to those care homes.
There are around 650 people in hospital beds in Greater Manchester who are medically fit to be discharged, but around half of our care homes are currently unable to accept new residents.
And Anne, the Prime Minister's announced some changes to the rules to try to address all this.
Yes, as of next Tuesday, if you don't have symptoms but have a positive lateral flow result, you will no longer have to book a PCR test, but just isolate from the day of that positive result. That a clear attempt to get people back to work quicker. And at Prime Minister's questions, Boris Johnson announced more changes to rules governing travel.
So I can announce that in England from 4 a.m. on Friday, we will be scrapping the pre-departure test, which discourages many from travelling for fear of being trapped overseas and incurring significant extra expense. We will also be lifting the requirement to self-isolate on arrival until receipt of a negative PCR, returning instead to the system we had in October last year, where those arriving in England will need to take a lateral flow test no later than the end of day 2, and if positive, a further PCR test to help us identify any new variants at the border.
So, some cheer for the travel industry this evening, but it's difficult to disagree with Andy Burnham, who says January is going to be a sobering and challenging month for many.
Yeah, it certainly is. And many thanks indeed for that roundup.
Now, one of the other areas of concern has been the return to school after the Christmas holidays. There's been a staggered start to the new year, with head teachers urging pupils to test before returning to class.
Yeah, many have used the Christmas break to come up with contingency plans to try to keep staff and pupils safe.
Well, earlier we spoke to one head in Oldham whose school's returning without him because, you've guessed it, he's recovering from COVID, and he's admitted it's not been the best of starts for him.
No, it's a little bit frustrating, but I'm blessed to have a really hard-working team who've done lots over the holidays and will do lots tomorrow to welcome the children back and do everything they can to make them feel safe and secure and to get back to core business of learning, which is absolutely what we want to do.
Now, you're testing pupils when they arrive in school. Why is that happening? Because could they not be bringing COVID onto site?
I suppose, yes, that is technically accurate, but we're doing that to be able to show everyone that we're taking every possible measure to keep school as safe as possible. And we're very lucky that we've got some staff who are non-teachers who have come to help us with the testing. We've got some colleagues from Oldham Council, and we've even got some retired members of staff who've come in to help, including my dad, who's coming in to help with testing, just to make sure that we get the children back into learning as quickly as possible.
Glyn, what about staff's sickness? How many members of staff do you currently have off? And presumably that means that you need to bring in supply staff. Have you got money in the budget to be able to pay for that?
We've got 18 members of staff confirmed off for tomorrow at this point. That includes 8 teaching staff. In terms of the budgetary requirements, schools, like most public sector areas, do not have the budgets for that. We are moving money around to make sure that that's prioritised, but it will come at the expense of some other projects or plans, which is disappointing because we could see that this was coming.
I mean, 8 members of staff currently off. That's quite a significant number, especially at the start of the year when you're supposed to be hitting the ground running.
Yeah, it is a concern, but I've got lots of hard-working members of staff at the school I serve who will give up their time to make sure that the children take priority and that the learning is as stable as it possibly can be. But what we really need to be discussing is the sort of medium-term solution and then the long-term strategy, because if we're going to have to live with this, we're going to have to find better ways than lurching between different announcements to decide how best to do this. And we really need to make sure that that's happening quickly because the students need to be in school.
It's great to hear that you've got support from your dad and volunteers coming in, but has there been enough support centrally to make sure that you can provide the education that kids so desperately need?
I have to be honest and say the council have been phenomenal for us, really supportive, particularly public health and the education department within the council. In terms of central support from the Department for Education, it's a really difficult task for them, but I think the conversations are too limited, too late, and we don't really understand the plan. So we know that the nation has a plan B. Well, what's the plan B for education? Why not use this as an opportunity to address some of those inbuilt inequalities so that young people can have a better service from education and more stability, and that parents understand exactly what the outcomes are likely to be?
And we're told that we're seeing a mental health crisis, particularly with young people. Are you seeing a lot more anxiety amongst pupils?
I think that risk is a fair one, and it is one that is a concern for everyone in education. But let's not underplay the resilience of these young people or the talent that they have. Where young people do present with some of those difficulties, we will, of course, do our best to support them. But funding from those areas as well has been cut, with CAMS and the mental health support teams having been reduced. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be something we're going to have to face together. But I would argue that we are in a strong position to do so. We just need some joined up thinking and a little bit of patience from central government to make sure we put the children first in this rather than anything else.
And just finally, Glyn, on a personal level, I mean, how are you? Can't be easy rallying the troops on the first day of term when you're stuck at home.
No, I mean, I'm really frustrated not to be on the gates tomorrow morning. But, we've got to play by the rules. The only way we're going to get through this is if we all work together, and throwing blame or trying to do heroics won't necessarily make the difference that we need. So I'll do my best to be working from home tomorrow to give the members of staff the best I can. And when I get back in on Monday, God willing, I'll be able to walk around, meet and greet the students and show them that actually this is a year we should really be making a success.
Glyn Potts, we wish you a speedy recovery. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And the Department for Education says it understands some schools and colleges might find it difficult to run their usual timetable if high numbers of staff are absent. It says it's supporting schools to put in place appropriate contingency measures.
Next, a poignant memorial garden to the victims of the Manchester Arena terror attack has opened almost 5 years after the suicide bombing.
Yes, the Glade of Light features a marble halo with the names of the 22 men, women and children who died in the terrorist attack.
The stepfather of one of the victims says the tribute is a quiet place for everyone affected by the bombing. This report from Tim Scott.
A beautiful open space next to Manchester Cathedral. This is now the city's permanent memorial to the 22 victims of the Arena bombing. Each name is written into the marble, which forms a halo around a central garden. Families of those who lost loved ones have been able to place personalised memory capsules containing mementos and messages which are embedded inside the halo. And for one survivor of the Arena attack, it's perfect.
It's somewhere I always pass through when I'm in town, at the shops, at bars, hopefully, going to the football if we get up this season. But it's something I'll always pass through just to remember and reflect for even just a moment. But it's there for you to just hold on to. I think it's brilliant.
And the stepfather of Martin Hett, who was killed in the Arena bombing, says the memorial honours everyone affected by the tragedy.
There's so many more people affected by this, and we shouldn't forget them. The hundreds of people injured and all those who were there or were involved in it some way, the rescue effort, everything that went on, all the people have helped us, so they all need somewhere to possibly go and reflect. So it's nice that there's somewhere for everybody.
The Glade of Light has been specially designed so that every spring the plants here will bloom into life and provide colour for the memorial. And the centrepiece is this hawthorn tree whose white flowers will come out every May to coincide with the anniversary of the attack.
We chose the hawthorn tree on the very basis that it blooms round about May time every year. So there will be, I think, as spring comes, much more colour that you'll see here.
But for people maybe coming into the city and walking through here for the first time, what kind of impression did you want to create?
We just really wanted something that was beautiful. One of the things that really struck me after the attack was the strength of feeling in Manchester, the real powerfulness of love conquering hate, and we tried to do something really that was a tribute to that.
Manchester is still united in grief for the men, women and children who lost their lives in the attack of May 2017, and united in respect for the families they left behind. This place of reflection and remembering, this Glade of Light, will ensure future generations won't forget how they died. Tim Scott, ITV News, Manchester.
To other news now, and a man's appeared in court in Liverpool charged with the murder of his elderly father. Tony Lavender, who would have been 80 today, was found with a head injury at his house in Old Swan last week. He was pronounced dead at the scene. David Lavender, who's 37, was remanded into custody and will appear at Crown Court later this week.
Greater Manchester Police have released shocking footage of a pregnant woman being robbed. 2 men pushed her to the ground to steal her car. The attack happened in Denton over Christmas. The footage has been released in the hope of catching the men, who police have described as cowardly and dangerous.
A 60-year-old man from Lancashire has been charged with criminal damage outside the Health Secretary's home in London. It follows reports of an anti-vaccine protest near to Sajid Javid's house. Geza Tajani from Leyland will appear before Crown Court next month.
A campaign to tackle child food poverty by Manchester United's Marcus Rashford has raised almost £200,000. He launched full-time meals with the Fair Share charity in April last year. Along with chef Tom Kerridge, he created a number of recipes, including a £10 Christmas dinner. The money raised so far will provide an extra 750,000 meals for people who need them.
And there's still lots to come on the programme, including
why Mir can claim to be top cat on social media, at least.
And there's been a dusting of snow over the tops over the last couple of days, but I think many more of us will see it over the next 24-hour period. In fact, there's a warning for snow in place from the Met Office. Not all of us will see it, but all the details are coming up later on in the programme.
Now, let's find out what's coming up in a few minutes on the ITV News at 6:30 with Mary.
Coming up on the programme, changes to the COVID testing rules in England and Scotland. PCR tests for people without symptoms are scrapped. So what difference will that make to the numbers isolating? The backlash against Novak Djokovic's vaccine exemption to play in the Australian Open. Could the world number one be sent packing? And the real-life lassie who saved his owner's life. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Well, it's all about the dogs now. Next to a dramatic rescue on the Isle of Man with thankfully a happy ending. A call went out to the Manx community after two Dachshunds went missing.
Yeah, who doesn't like a happy ending? Lulu, a 6-month-old puppy, managed to make her way home, but 2-year-old Bebe was heard yelping for help at the bottom of a flooded quarry.
Our Isle of Man reporter Joshua Stokes takes up the story.
Come on, Bebe. Good girl. Come on, Bebe. After 26 hours of searching...
Oh, goodness. Thank goodness.
Relief after not one, but 2 dogs went missing.
I was just out feeding the hens and they were out with me, and they're just usually out every morning just fussing around. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. And, I just turned around and they were gone. Obviously, after an hour had passed, we started to panic a little bit and the searching started.
That search continued into the night, and 21 hours later, the youngest had found her own way home.
We just heard absolute squealing, which was this one, Lulu, who is the pup. She is 6 months old, and Lulu had arrived back and was very, very distressed. It was a mixture of being really, really delighted to see her, but also quite worried that this one, Bebe, is the ringleader, and she wasn't there.
Bebe had been missing for over 24 hours, and it wasn't until they reached the quarry where they had their first major clue.
I got a message to say, can you check Lulu's legs, because she got dust on her, because there's like dusty footprints in some sand which was over by a quarry which is nearby.
That kind of led us to Bebe, so that was the trail.
Bebe had fallen down a ledge, so Juan decided he was going in.
There was only one way out of that. The water was the way I went in. I've done a lot of open water swimming in the past, but generally in a wetsuit. When I got over there, she was really excited to see me. So I just paused for a moment just to make sure she was okay. It wasn't just a snapshot decision. It was based on, we'd looked to see whether we could walk around the edge of the quarry to get to her. We really couldn't. It was far too dangerous.
Come on, Bebe. Good girl. Come on, Bebe.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they will ever be off the leads again, or not for a very, very long while. It's a great start to what could have been very different, a different year ahead.
And an adventure they're not likely to forget. Joshua Stokes, ITV News, in the Isle of Man.
Yeah, you were saying to me earlier that Dachshunds are particularly naughty dogs.
They are very naughty, very strong-willed, although they're particularly cute.
Like yourself? It's just worth pointing out that Juan, a former police officer, is a strong swimmer and used to assessing risks on the spot. Well, next, and staying with the animal theme, a fluffy feline from Salford is officially the UK's top cat.
Yes, Mia's owners created an obstacle course for her to keep fit, as you do, during the various lockdowns, and their videos have been viewed an incredible 184 million times.
Fantastic stuff. Mia's antics are among the most watched of 2021.
Tasha Kachiri has been to see the new celebrity of the cat world.
This is Mia. She isn't any old cat filled with personality. She's a global celebrity thanks to TikTok. Her videos have racked up millions of views on the platform. This one in particular is 2021's most watched video in the UK with more than 184 million views. Mia's videos are made by one of her owners, Yulia. English is not her first language, so she's enlisted the help of her husband, Dimitro, for this interview. So how did it all start?
When we were in lockdown, obviously everything was closed and we didn't have much stuff to do. That's how the obstacle games started, because we wanted to do something with Mia to let her show off her abilities and to train her and to let her do something she can't really do in a, home setting.
Yulia creates all the videos and even teaches Mia lots of new tricks. What started off as a fun family pastime has exploded into something that brings joy to millions.
It was so wonderful to see people like our cat and our videos, and that our videos bring a lot of happiness to them.
When you read lots of comments about people who tell you that you made their day or you made it slightly better, that's probably the best part, because that's the comments that just make you smile always, and that's amazing.
While Mia is now a celebrity, Yulia and Dimitro have insisted not much has changed in their household, and Mia is first and foremost an amazing family pet.
Mia is extremely gentle. She is extremely fluffy as well, and she doesn't even scratch or bite you. She is also quite smart.
But what more does this family have in store for their 2.5 million followers on TikTok?
We want to get another cat. We already have a name for the cat, and we also want to get a parrot, and then we want to start making similar videos.
Well, it seems like the cat videos won't be pausing anytime soon. Tasha Kachiri, ITV News, Salford.
I mean, purely for work purposes, I did spend a lot of time on TikTok in the newsroom watching Mia in action, and there is something quite mesmerising about her. So if you do get a chance, please have a look.
Captivating. Now the weather now, and winter's back with a vengeance. Here's Joe.
That sunshine really made your eyeshadow pop, you know? And you put the wipe in the bin, not the toilet.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Go ahead, Queen.
Thank you. Very good evening to you. Hopefully you've managed to enjoy just a little slice of that wintry sunshine today. It's certainly going to be rather cold over the next few days, with snow for some of us here in the northwest. Windy conditions as well, and icy roads will be a feature over the next few nights and days, so something to bear in mind if you have to travel. We have a front moving in from the west during the day tomorrow, bringing a spell of rain, sleet and snow, particularly up on higher ground in the Pennines during tomorrow afternoon and again tomorrow night. Low pressure in charge through the rest of the week, but by the weekend, temperatures are picking up a little bit, so we lose that wintry risk. Back to this evening, temperatures will drop away like a stone under clear skies. It's going to be down to -5, -6 rurally, no doubt tonight. And in the far west by dawn, slightly more cloud building as we begin to see that front approaching in the far west. But before that, very quiet conditions tonight, a widespread frost and a very cold start to the day tomorrow, when the sun will be up at 8:27, setting tomorrow at 4:07. Tomorrow it's likely to start dry initially, but certainly by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning we're beginning to see that front moving in. It'll bring a spell of rain, sleet and snow, particularly up on higher ground, so some disruption perhaps later on in the day. It moves through and temperatures will lift just a little bit, but with those showers behind, still a rather wet afternoon, 5 or 6 Celsius at best. Windy conditions, and there's a likelihood with those strong winds up on higher ground in the Lakeland Fells and the Pennines. There could be blizzard-like conditions where we see further snow showers during tomorrow night. Icy roads as well, so do take care. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Those eyebrows are unreal.
All very chilly. We are back at 25 to 11. In the meantime, our website will keep you up to date. itv.com/Granada.
Tomorrow we catch up with the Cheshire Brothers behind some very special socks.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.